on our timing screen is showing us about 2.5 seconds behind Dennis Lynn. So that's impressive stuff. That's Adam Maguire, the Irish driver. So he's one of their 2 sim racing pros, but he has got a pair of Aston Martin racing cars in the way, so those vantages are not going to be easy to get by. It's not like it's a slower class. It's going to be a long, tough battle for the Porsche driver. Oh, it's suddenly become a little easier. Did both Astons dive into the pit lane? Wow, so that's excellent for him.
The message got through to Aston Martin. Get out of the way, no problem.
Well, yeah, bing, bing, they ran out of, or they didn't run out of fuel. Alex Lynn, by the way.
Dear. Gulf Racing coming to a stop.
No. Don't tell me he should have gone into the pits as well. Darren Turner did come into the pits.
And Gulf Racing, yep, that's surely got to be a fuel issue.
So early in the lap? What, he had like an espresso cup left?
I mean, I'm not going to say that was the problem, but it is easy to have a lapse in concentration like that and just forget that you've got to come into the pits because now the car's gone.
No.
Is that going to be race over for Gulf Racing?
Well, he's got 13.5 of the 13. Well, no, he hasn't even got to the line, so he hasn't even started the next lap. So he's got more than 13.6 kilometers, more like 13.7 or 13.8 kilometers. He must be 100 meters from the start line.
Yep, so
he's got more than a lap to go to get back to the pit entry.
You can't get out and start pushing it either in a virtual race.
You can, but you're not going to get very far. You're not going to push a GT. First of all, you're not going to push it uphill to the Dunlop Bridge. Secondly, you're not going to push it 13.6 kilometers in the dark without getting hit by something.
But look, we joke, but that is a huge moment in this race for Gulf Racing. And now they've been shown as stopped.
Yep.
And if they've run out of fuel, then that's race over, Martin. And that would be
back in the garage.
There we go. Yeah, I think that. I wouldn't like to call it early, but that looks like that's pretty terminal to me now. I think that could be race over. I'll get confirmation, I'm sure, from the guys in race control, but that's a real shame. And if it is fuel, then it may have just been a slight lapse in concentration. I'm not too sure, but I'm sure the guys will be looking into that and we'll get the messages through as to exactly what's happened to Gulf Racing. But what a shame.
Gulf are resetting their server. So
just a coincidental time to be slowing down, maybe.
World Endurance Championship PR officer Rachel Cavers watching from home in the UK. It is not fuel related. They are resetting their server, and a message from earlier on in one of my earlier rambles. Nobody is racing from Africa, or nobody is racing in Africa or from Africa. Yeah, there is nobody from Africa right now. Anyway.
We got there in the end.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yes, very good. All right, so phew. I mean, it's bad news, but it could be a lot worse for Gulf Racing. Could be a lot worse. At the moment, they've only dropped to 10th place, and let's hope if they can get the server reset quickly. The next car is 3 minutes behind them. Federico Leo, I think that'll be in the 71 AF Corsa Ferrari, and that might be first opportunity for Ferrari. Oh, he's just come into the pits for fuel. Still, might be the first opportunity for Ferrari to be in the top 10 for a long, long while. A long, long while.
Another thing to consider for Adam Maguire and Gulf Racing, I don't know where they were on fuel. If they were coming towards the end of their stint, then they're going to go out with the same amount. So
yeah, but if he had a lap, he's still got a lap. Here he is. He's out. Oh, that's not him. He will still have whatever fuel allowance it was. I'm assuming when the server resets, it won't reset at full everything.
No. I mean,
hopefully.
What I'm saying is, if he only had a lap to do, then he'll come out and do 2 laps, say, if that's what he had remaining in his stint, and then he has to come straight back in. He's not going to have a fuel tank, and he'll go out for a full stint, whatever he had left in that. And I'm not saying that as a worry, of course not, but it's just something to take into consideration. No,
absolutely, and he'll be very aware what was left in the car. Tony Mellor has now moved up into the top 10, so there is a Ferrari in the top 10, but it's not Federico Leo in the 71. He and Adam Maguire have both been jumped by Tony Mellor, who's in the 54 Strong Together Ferrari. So Princess Charlene of Monaco, her car, her team, are now up into the top 10. So that is now the lead Ferrari. So the car that, I'm not reading that wrong. No, there is there is no other Ferrari in the top 10. The car that was going best of all was the 52 car. That was the all-red Ferrari that was driven early on by Charles Leclerc and then Antonio Giovinazzi, and then that suffered a problem, and Charles Leclerc posted a picture online of the car on its roof upside down in the middle of the track, which is an issue. Among a number of issues they had with that car, that is definitely not as map. And we're looking at that car now, in fact, particularly, but that car, David Tanitsa is at the wheel at the moment. That car is running last in the field, 50th of 50, 20th of 20 GTE cars. This is the top Ferrari. This is the white and red strong together car. Of course, 3 of their drivers are in racing in Automobile Club de Monaco, in Monaco. I was watching a bit of old footage the other day, and Graham Hill and all the others, you know, it was Monaco. I'm petitioning to bring that back. Trying to get Plummy Brit with Monaco.
Well, in Monaco, they do enjoy having yogurts whilst driving down the Mulsanne Straight. I don't know if you saw that picture.
I didn't.
That's what he was doing on his stream as he's driving down Mulsanne.
Excellent, excellent. Topping up with a bit of yacht. I'm not sure that that is Ferrari Formula One approved health-giving.
No.
All those lovely little excellent life bacteria. Going by the Mahler racing team car of Jimmy Broadbent. Jimmy back at the wheel of that car for the moment while they try and solve the problems of Rob Wickens. Now, obviously Jimmy had been driving it before Rob got back in, and will have been on standby just in case.
Yeah.
But their other 2 drivers presumably are still in a sleep pattern or trying to have some rest pattern. So for the moment, Jimmy may well be the man who is soldiering on with that car. But they are going to have to get the other guys out of their previous rotation, because, you know, it's entirely possible that Rob will not be able to drive the car again. And so maybe Ferdy Hatzberg might have to get back in the car and get some more miles under his belt, or, you know, it's again, you know, another one of those plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D's. Yep. Ripped up again. The race rewrites all your plans for you just for the fun of it.
And you just mentioned it there, you know, all drivers are going to have that reserve driver ready. You have to have it. It's like, you know, one of the Toyota teams at Le Mans having that driver in the back of the garage on standby. You can't run off and grab them if they're having a sleep and say, right, get your suit on, get everything on, the car's coming in. All the drivers out there at the moment, every team will have a driver on standby, literally in the rig, ready to go. So in case there is a problem halfway around the lap and the driver has to bail into the pits and to keep up with the strategy or the E or F strategy that you had to do a changeover, then that is what they have to do. So all of the teams are going to have drivers on standby.
Good news for fans of Wolverhampton Wanderers and or Gulf Racing. Adam Maguire is back out on track. They are now, however, though, 3 laps behind our race leader in GT, Tommy Østgaard. So that has cost them at least a lap, and they have dropped from what was 10th to 14th position. Tony Miller is now in the pit lane from 10th in the strong together Ferrari. So Federico Leo, who is on his outlap, that to me, he's just completed his outlap now, starting his flying lap. In fact, that's him in the background of the shot. I was going to say, seems to me that's like a very long pit stop, but Federico Leo should move up into 10th place and has. And ahead of him is the Feed Racing 99 Corvette, and Adam Maguire shown as stopped again. I'm suggesting that server issue has not gone away for Gulf Racing. They may have to make an emergency substitution and get another driver in a different sim rig on track. Looking at Rubens Barrichello in the Fernando Alonso Rubens Barrichello car. That car is in 25th place overall, number 14. Much fancied teams, but they did have a problem with the machinery of the game, giving them an automatic drive-through penalty just as Fernando had gone into the pit lane for fuel, and the internal rules of the organism of the Matrix refused to allow him to fuel, so he had to leave the pit lane after serving a drive-through penalty that he hadn't intended to be serving. With 1.6 litres of fuel left, the car ran out, was out of the game, and was reinstated by the race control when we had a server crash and a red flag. Now, what they didn't do was put him back on the lead lap where they were when the game took them out of the running. So they came in at the back of the LMP2 field, so they were, I think, half a dozen laps back, weren't they? So they have now completed, they've completed 166 to 172, so yeah, they're still half a dozen laps back, but they are at least all of them able to get out there and get racing and get driving, so that's better news for them than they had expected. In fact, we gather that Fernando Alonso, who was in the car at the time, having accepted the fact that they were out and actually put a very nice message up about it for the fans on YouTube, then got out on his bike and went for a cycle. He was 30 kilometers into a cycle run. They had to get him on the phone and go, Fernando, we're back in the race, mate.
Turn around and get
turn
back.
around, bright eyes.
And get cycling very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So, so his message after that was, well, we're back in the race. I guess I'm not going cycling till tomorrow night now. So he's made a tough start. He's going to do a 24-hour Le Mans race and then go out for mid 100-kilometer or something, gentle spin to cool down afterwards.
And not everyone would usually be desperate to go for a cycle after doing the Le Mans 24-hour, but Fernando Alonso is a different character altogether.
Yeah, they're made of different stuff, these drivers, and they spend so much time in the saddle. It's phenomenal how many kilometers these drivers will cycle over a normal season when they're busy racing, never mind when they've had 3 months without being able to sit in a car. For one of our other much fancied runners, Archie Kirchhoff, still in the pits for Team Redline. We saw them come in earlier. That is a long pit stop, and that is the car with which he had, in his last stint, set the fastest race lap of all. Looking at Alex Young, former Grand Prix driver, the Malaysian driver for Axel Motorsports, number 21 car. It's an all-Malaysian lineup, and that is the third of our father-son combinations. Axel and his teenage son, Alex. Oh, duh, that's where Axel Motorsport comes from. Is it really that simple? Is that just, that's an anagram of Alex? I suppose it sounds better than Nuig or any other anagram of Young. I don't know. I just called him Axel by mistake because it's the same 4 letters as Alex Young. So Alex and his son are 2 of the 4 drivers in that Malaysian entered LMP2 team.
I think you're going to get a stop and go there from our race director,
Eduardo Freitas,
shaking his head.
Wandered over, he's having a coffee break and he's getting no respite or any sense from the commentary position. So, but this is something he can't do. In as much as I can walk over to race control, but not in 2 minutes. He doesn't walk over to the commentary booth just to see if we're still talking nonsense.
No.
That's not one of his normal jobs. So, back to the race in hand. And the race lead is now out to nearly 40 seconds. And this is a really consistent run we're seeing now from our race leaders. From the number 1 car from Rebellion Williams Esports, Louis Delatraz, Raffaele Marcello, the Real World Drives, Nikodem Wisniewski and Kuba Brzezinski are their sim racing drivers, and they have all been putting in some pretty heavy lifting, some very quick laps. Jesper Pedersen second for Bajkoles, and again, despite the setbacks that number 4 car has had, they are right back and up towards the top of the pile again in 2nd place overall. They are ahead now of the 2C's Motorsport car. They're riding on board with our race leader. All the familiar sights and sounds of Le Mans, if not the smells, will be familiar to not just the drivers, but also to regular fans of Le Mans. So much of this is the sort of stuff that you will see during the night in the 24 hours, hopefully when we get back to racing at Le Mans in September.
I actually had messages coming in about that, people saying, you know, I'm enjoying watching this so much more than some other esports over there out there, because it's just Le Mans at night time? That's what some of the messages I've been getting in, and you know what? Yes, I'd say it is. You know, watching cars go around Le Mans in the night is fantastic, and to get even onboard views like we're getting here are fantastic. But all the familiar sounds and the sights there, not quite the smells, but the sounds and the sights.
Yeah, definitely. All sorts of interesting questions and comments about this virtual 24 hours. Dennis Crowley on Twitter saying, this is kind of rad, virtual 24-hour Le Mans. PS, still 3 drivers per team. Well, no. In this race, 4 drivers per team, Dennis, and the rule is no team is allowed to have more than 2 sim racing pros. The other 2 drivers, at least 2 drivers, must be FIA license holders of a grade where they could race at Le Mans. They don't have to have raced at Le Mans. They don't have to have done any endurance racing, but they do have to be real-world professional racing drivers. A classic example would be Esteban Guerrieri, runner-up in last year's World Touring Car Series in the TCR Touring Car Cup. He's not raced at Le Mans, but he is a professional grade A real-world racing driver, and also very quick in the sim world, as has been proved during lockdown. So he is one of the drivers in one of the teams with no Le Mans experience other than what he has gained in the month building up to this race. So 4 drivers. Some teams have gone with a 50-50 split. Some teams, let's talk about Toyota Gazoo Racing, United Autosports, they have gone for a 3-1 split. So they've got 3 pro drivers and 1 sim racer. Toyota's logic was, we want our racing drivers and our racing engineers to work together again. They haven't seen each other for nearly 6 months, and they haven't worked together for nearly 6 months. We don't want to go in the run-up to Le Mans rusty, and this is a chance for them to work together. We've only got 3 drivers, so we're going to get a sim pro in, and he will lead us to develop the cars that we're using for the prototype teams, which are LMP2 cars, which of course Toyota have 0 experience of, because they don't run LMP2, they run in LMP1, and they build their own cars and their own hybrid system. So they needed that sim input, and without it, they would have really struggled. One of the other teams that hasn't gone, in fact, there are 2 other prototype teams that haven't gone for even, oh no, I beg your pardon, I was about to say the Richard Mille team, but they, Richard Mille team, they have gone, the all-female team, they have got 1 sim racer, Emily Jones, but one of the other key teams in the race, big names, is Roger Penske's Team Penske. They're here with 4 professional Penske drivers, and Roger's logic was very similar to Toyota's. I've got great drivers on my payroll, we want to come back to Le Mans, I'm going to bring them with me, and I'm going to bring them with me starting here.
It's a unique opportunity for a team to work together as they would without being in the same room or being at the track with the car there as well. So without even having to put all the effort of getting a car over to Le Mans with all the team coming from all around the world. Of course, we've got social distancing rules as well, which will make these things very difficult. But Toyota are able to live out that same experience safely and able to do it effectively as well and be put to the test, because this is perhaps the best grid in esports there has ever been. And as you said, the engineers are getting to work together once again with the drivers as well, and that is a really crucial part. And they went with some really quick sim drivers, as you would expect. Yuri Kasdorp is one of the top 10 sim drivers in the world. He's probably one of the top 10 tallest sim drivers in the world as well, because he is
tallest drivers of any kind. Him and Ben Barker.
He's incredibly tall, the Dutchman. But yeah, I think a lot of people would have found it strange that Toyota didn't throw everything at this to put themselves at the front. Look, we always see Toyota at the front of the FIA World Endurance Championship. We'll probably see them at the front again when we go racing at Le Mans in September. And that's what Toyota want to focus on. Their professional drivers haven't got sim racing experience. They're not going to go and force them to get that experience. But what they are going to do is get them to go through the same routine as they usually would on race week. The engineers likewise, and all of a sudden everyone's minds are focused once again.
News on Twitter, from Team Redline. Unfortunately, our number 20 car has been officially retired. It was a good 11-hour run where we led much of the race. Better luck next time. Our focus is now on the 37 and the 38 Team Jota Redline cars. Thank you for all the support. So Max Verstappen, Lando Norris and their teammates are officially out. There is confirmation on screen. The car is in the garage. Now in R-Factor 2, does the garage door get rolled down when the car is officially retired as it would do in the real world? That's really, really unfortunate. You know, they were two big names from the real world who have become superstars in lockdown of the virtual world. I'm sure they brought a lot of fans to this Le Mans 24 Hours Virtual, and they had real pace, but again, Le Mans is a cruel mistress. They did not have real luck.
Everyone I spoke to about this event, Martin, said Team Redline are going to win. Team Redline are the ones to beat. And that's not a coincidence, because they were. They've got Lando Norris and Max Verstappen, who have experience together in sim racing, winning endurance races. They also race in something called Formula One as well. And as well as that, the teammates that they had two of the best sim drivers. They had the guys who helped put Team Redline together, one of those being Gregor Hutu, the Finnish driver, and Atse Kirchhoff, the Dutch driver. Between them, they have years of experience, 20 of those going to Gregor alone. So they were the favourites for this event, but no matter if you are favourites, you can be that, but you've got to make it until the end. And it's such a shame to see them out of the race. I really do feel for them, Martin, because like the 24-hour of Le Mans race, let alone the virtual race, so much hard work has been put into this event. So many hours of testing, and it must be so frustrating as a driver when that garage door, as you said, gets rolled down physically or virtually, and all of that hard work has gone, and you just feel devastated just to get to the end. I mean, ambitions for a team in a Le Mans race can go from winning to a podium to top 5, top 10, then just down to finishing the race, and that's what it would have been at the end for Team Redline. And it's a real shame that our favourites for this event aren't going to make it to the end.
Yeah, and sometimes it is just about surviving Le Mans, and that's the first car that has not survived Le Mans. It may not be the last either. Max Papis, first stint done for Max, he says. Had to learn a lot, spun once. Finding the correct field to get tyre temperature in the MPI car, way more difficult than reality. And that's something that all of the real racing drivers have definitely discovered about this, that there is a real trick to driving these cars, and it doesn't necessarily suggest itself to you. Couple more mentions on Twitter. Sarah Rigby, back home in the UK, a big Aston Martin fan, helpfully suggests that the 98 Aston can be identified by the Northwest stickers on the doors and underneath the front headlights and the orange AM panel, which is perfect in the middle of the night and on a long shot in a semi-dark pit lane. So, but she does agree the three Astons are not so easy, that may be the understatement of the day, to identify. And Rob Smith, I've been up since 6:30 a.m. Can't decide whether I should stay up and watch Le Mans or get some sleep. He's obviously only looking for us to say, well, obviously, Rob, you need to stay up and watch Le Mans. So obviously, Rob,
there we go.
You only need to stay up and watch them on. Lando Norris on Twitter just now. Hard work pays off, that's for sure, but some things are out of our control. We did our best, but it doesn't always work out. Respect the effort, though. We'll come back next year, ... maybe. Well, who knows what the world will look like next year. We don't even know what it'll look like next month, never mind next year. But no question at all, everybody involved in this race, organisers, the R-Factor guys, motorsport games, the teams, the drivers, the engineers have put heart and soul into this. And for even one of the teams to hit so many problems that they can't continue is just really heartbreaking for all of them and for everybody else who's hoping that everybody's going to get as much out of this race as they possibly can.
you never know how much hard work the other team is putting in as well, Martin, because there isn't like test days, scheduled test days where you know all the teams are going to be there, and then you can have an eye, watch what all the other teams are doing out on circuit, and then you have the official practice where you go through and you see all the other teams put in the hours in. No one knows how much practice the other team has put in. All I'd say is it's an incredibly large amount, and they're probably all put in around the same amount of preparation for this, which is going to be a huge amount because they can test as much as they want. And as people will know, followers of Lando Norris and Max Verstappen will know that they have been at this thing pretty much every single day. Where maybe it's not just preparing for this, but they've been racing in all sorts, and I really do feel for them because it would have been, I know they would have been really hoping to even just get to the end of their first ever 24-hour of Le Mans Virtual. Really won't see them, really a shame not to see them make it to the flag. However, they laid a pretty good presence down on the event, I have to say. We've spoken about them quite a lot,
yep.
And that usually means you did pretty well.
And there's, you know, there's so many positives in this, isn't there? And here's another classic on Twitter. Ella saying, I just realized we have a Malaysian representative in this year's Virtual Mans. You don't have one, you have four. You have an all-Malaysian four-driver lineup in the Axel Motorsport car number 21. Alex Young, the ex-Grand Prix driver, and his son Alistair. You've got Mohamed Nasqib and Mika Hakimi, who are the two sim race pros in that car as well. So Ella may just have realised, but they have been getting ready for this for a month. And there is Alex Young proudly flying the flag for Malaysia. And it's been a while since we had the all-Malaysian team sponsored by Sepang International Circuit in the World Endurance Championship during Super Season, but they had a great time as well, winning a race outright in their class in the LMP2. And there is, I think it is Alex Young at the moment at the wheel of the Axel Motorsport car. So a full Malaysian representation. So wherever you are in the archipelago, yeah, root for your guys. And again, wherever you are around the world, you've got a dog in this fight as well. Whichever continent you're in, except Antarctica, I believe, you will have at least one driver and conceivably quite a lot more in this race as well. So any of the continents, drivers racing from 37 different countries here, North and South America, across Asia and Australasia, across Europe, Scandinavia, North and South, East and West. And the only continent in which we do not have a driver actually competing at the moment is in Africa, though we do have a number of South African drivers racing in the field. So everybody gets a shout and everybody has somebody to root for. From first to second, pulling gears as fast as we can as we look on board at the Rebellion Williams eSports team. And which of the cars is this? Unfortunately, this is the wrong side of the car for us to be able to easily identify which of their four cars it is. Is this the number 1 or number 13? It's the number 1 car. There we go. It's our race leader. And let's just bring us up to speed. I shall find the correct page and get the timing up. And that is Louis Delatraz. Agustin Canapino is receiving lots of mentions on Twitter at the moment from Argentina because he is back at the wheel of number 13 car. And Rebellion Williams eSport at the moment, 2 of their 4 cars running 1-2 as we fast approach the midway point of this 24 hours of Le Mans virtual race. 2C's Motorsport still in 3rd place and only 4 seconds away from the 2nd placed Williams. So that is a really solid, I think now 2nd stint for the driver of the 33 car, who is Uti bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, Isa bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, I beg his pardon. And there is the 33 car, that sort of blue 2C's Motorsport car. It's the Bahrain entered entry. It's got the Bahraini driver at the wheel. And if he is the weak link in the chain, that's a strong chain. Now, he took the car over in 2nd place, and in a stint and a half, he's only 4 seconds out of 2nd place. I'm putting that down as I'm talking about him now in glowing terms, so I'm now closing my eyes so he doesn't crash in the Porsche curves, but that would be really the curse of the commentator. He is doing a stand-up job. That is a great... don't forget, he hasn't driven in the daylight. He's been handed the car in the dark in second place. Hey, no pressure, man. Just, you know... Yeah, just bring it back in one piece.
That's what probably would have been the plan as well to Al Khalifa. They would have said, we're going to put you out in night time. All we want you to do is drive the thing round, bring it back in one piece, and then give it back to the rest of the team to go on and push for a good result. But everyone in that chain, as you said, Martin, has to play their part. And so far, I totally agree with you. Now, Al Khalifa may have just dropped to third from second place, with Canapino jumping up to second, but he's doing a great job out there. He's clearly dealing with traffic very well. As I say that, I'm just going to hope he gets past this bit of traffic. There are not much problems, which I think he did. And he's dealing with Le Mans at night time successfully. And any driver who's driven the 24-hour of Le Mans will tell you driving it at night time is incredibly difficult.
And really important that he did get cleanly past that Corvette. That's the R8G Roman Grosjean's team. And Grosjean on Twitter early on was showing all the signs of wishing that he was in this race as well as having a team in the race. He wanted to have a hand in the race as well. But that car was clattered early on at one of the chicanes on the Mulsanne straight by Catherine Legg in the Richard Mille LMP2 car. So that sort of took a big hit. But Danny Juncadella has been very quick. Have we seen Matthias Besch in the car? I certainly haven't noticed that he was in it.
We have, yeah. I remember seeing him out earlier.
Erhan Jaworski is the man at the wheel of the car at the moment. The Macedonian driver, Risto Capet. I've definitely mentioned his name being in the car. And that car is in third place. It is the first non-Porsche in the race. Porsche 1-2 with Tommy Erskard and Jackson Evans in the 93 and the 92 cars. Two of Porsche's 4 factory cars in the race. The 91 car lies in fourth. So that is being driven by Marty Pietala. Nicky Thiem is in fifth for Aston Martin Racing, the 95 car, which Simon Strang helpfully tells me in the real world would have a red laser strip. What on earth one of those is. In, I don't know, sixth position is the lead factory Corvette. That's their 64 car. And that was brought into the pits a couple of minutes ago by, I think, brought in by Alan Terzic, who is their one sim racer in that car. Well, there is the R8G car from above. Sounds exactly like a Corvette would. Flames stabbing out of the side exhaust on the overrun, exactly like a Corvette would. It just makes me want to be there so badly, all of this.
All right, to help you think like you are there for a little bit, what is your favorite sounding car when you go to Le Mans? Because it was my first time there last year, as I've mentioned a couple of times already, and by the end of it, it was the Porsche for me. I mean, you can go to Le Mans and you can face the other way of the circuit and you can just tell which cars are coming, or you can stand at the end of the Porsche curves and go, yeah, here comes the Porsche, here comes the Corvette. Well, which of the cars for you is the standout in terms of sound?
Joe, I don't know. I would have trouble choosing a favourite, but I do like a big V8. And Corvette have obviously been big with that. Aston Martin with the V12 and now with the V8, but it's a different sounding V8. The Panos LMP1 Roadster was always just this thundering beast. The Aston Martin MK, again, that huge capacity. Ain't no substitute for Qs, but of all the cars I've ever heard, and I wasn't there for wailing match of V12s and everything, of all the cars I've ever heard, the one that was A, unmistakable, and B, you could never escape, was the whoop of the Mazda triple rotary. That thing was just the most criminally noisy device on the planet. And when it won in 1991, actually left Volker Weidler, one of its 3 drivers, with permanent tinnitus.
Wow. Yeah.
Real hearing problems, yeah, really did. Despite earplugs and everything else, he's got appalling tinnitus from it. And yeah, that's it. But that thing, you know, you didn't just hear it from trackside, you heard it from 20 kilometers away. It was so ridiculously loud and such a high-pitched noise. Of all the cars I've ever heard racing, that was the most intrusive, certainly, and I don't quite remember how we managed to sleep through it, but I guess we were tired enough that we did, even for a little bit of time.
Enough drinks, maybe.
Yeah, except I was working, so no.
Right, there we go. You couldn't have said yes to that question.
And I was patrolling the pit lane, so in fact I didn't sleep at all thinking about it. There was no sleep. You did 24 hours in the pit lane.
That wouldn't be a good place to fall asleep in.
No. 38 and 37, the 2 red line entries that remain. 38, Jota Team red line in the pits. And 37, Jota Team red line also in the pits. In fact, the 38 cars just left the pit lane. 37 is just in. Your timing pylon on the TV screen or on your feed is about a lap behind. It's about half a lap behind now, actually, on our live timing in the studio here. The leader has completed 179 laps and is in the pit lane, and on your timing pylon, the leader has also completed 179 laps and is now in the pit lane. So Simon Strang arguing for the sound of the Peugeots that started on the front row. It was possibly a nicer noise, but I don't recall much about Peugeot in that era, except that they continually set light to us, or me particularly as a pit reporter. Once I was between a Peugeot and its refueling stand when it went woof. The other one I was on the pit lane side of it, and before the driver's door opened, and I think David Brabham tried to jump out, I was already behind the barriers on between the Armco and the pit wall. This was in the old pit lane, so yeah, a couple of flash fires from the Peugeot, red hot exhaust and gaily abandoned spilled fuel. Didn't really make a good combination. Louis Delatraz back out into the race, our race leader, and a wholesale pit stops now from our LMP2 field. Agustin Canapino, the Argentine, is in from second. And in and out has gone Arthur Rougier in the 0-3, or the number 3, Rebellion Williams. He's in 6th, Pierre Gasly in 7th. And in 8th place, the 37. Is that a driver change? For
yes.
Jota Sport Team Red Line?
Yeah, that's Faber,
I don't think Dominic... Was it Gabriel Aubry who brought it in, or was that a little early? Was Dominic Faber in it already? I'm not sure. Dominic Faber is in it at the moment. Now, one of the names I haven't conjured with in that team is Alexei Yusiakala, who is normally, well, I have commented on in the Porsche Tag Heuer Super Cup. So he definitely races GT cars, but he's got presumably plenty of experience in prototypes as well and in longer endurance races. But I don't know whether he's been in the car or not. Certainly, it's one of the names that I have not got my my laughing gear around up till this stage. Now, change in the leaderboard as well. Louis Delatraz after his pit stops lead. Jesper Pedersen has not yet dived in this round of pit stops in the number 4 Bicoles car. Agustin Canapino is back out. He came in from second. Back out as well in the 2Cs Motorsport car is Isa bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, the Bahrain driver. So he has stayed ahead of Nico Jama, who's in the Panis Racing car number 31, who is currently shown as 5th. So I guess he was behind Jesper Pedersen before. He's currently in the pit lane. Arthur Rougier moves ahead of him. So actually Rougier must have been ahead of Nico Jama. Pierre Gasly out, Dominic Faber out of the pit lane. Toyota starting their pit stops as well. Toyota Gazoo Racing Argentina, car number 10. That has just completed the pit stop. Nelson Piquet Jr. and Julian Santero are the two real-world drivers. Fabrizio Gobi and current incumbent in the car, Moreno Sirica from Italy. They are the sim racing duo in that car, and it is Sirica who has left the pit lane. Paul-Luc Chatin in our studio for IDEX Sport must now be on about a quad, because it seems like about a week ago that he was getting ready to take over the car in the studio here. So Paul-Luc Chatin, it would seem, on a long run, and maybe when he comes into the pit lane, as I will do shortly, he may be heading off for a little bit of rest and recuperation. And Chris will be staying with you until fully lunchtime tomorrow, I think, because he's made of stern stuff. But there is the smell of freshly brewed coffee in the air. That means we are not long before we are joined by Ben Constanduros, who will be leading you through the remainder of the darkness hours as we get towards the midway point of this race.
You're no stranger to these nighttime shifts, though, Martin.
No,
I mean, you said to me at the start of the week that you're always the one that finds yourself in the booth throughout the night for about 4 or 5 hours.
Well, not normally, no. We try and make sure that everybody gets 6 hours off at night, so they've got a chance to go to sleep and wake up and have a wash before they come back in. Even though we're in caravans, not too far, a 2-minute walk from the commentary booth, it is hard to get to sleep because of the noise, because we're right beside the Ford chicane, and because you're wired from having been on air. So I normally end up doing 7 or 8 or 9 hours in the middle of the night, because there aren't enough bodies for everybody to have 6 hours off at roughly the same time. So yeah, I figure that if I'm doing the schedule, then it's Muggins who gets the short straw, and I think Ben's made you Muggins this time around.
Any tips? Any advice?
Well, watch the racing, because that's normally what keeps us awake. So yeah. Tommy Usgaard still leading for Porsche from Jackson Evans. Still in third place is the R8G Esports Corvette in the GTE class. So that's your virtual podium at nearly halfway through. Fourth is the 91 Porsche. Fifth is the 95 Aston Martin. That's the top Aston. And in sixth position is the 64 factory Corvette Racing entered Corvette. Just checking with my screen that nothing was going wrong. Now, that was a GT car, not a prototype going slowly. Dempsey Proton, number 88, which was in the lead in the first hour, having started on the outside front row of the grid. They've dragged themselves back up to 7th place. That will be delighting team boss Patrick Dempsey, who we heard from earlier from his home in Malibu. I imagine he was desperate to get online to get away from the gorgeous views from his picture windows. Team Project One, their lead car, the 57 car, is 8th in GTE. Feed Racing's Corvette, the 99 car, is up to 9th in GTE. And Federico Leo rounds out the top 10 for the 71 AF Corsa Ferrari. And, as we documented, Ferrari's lead car, the 52 car, had so many problems earlier on. It is now ahead of 51, but they are 19th and 20th in class. And to bring those of you who haven't been watching from the start or weren't watching within the last half an hour, the storied race of car number 20 from Team Redline has come to an end. Atse Kirchhoff was the last man driving that car after a number of problems, incidents and accidents. Max Verstappen had a big incident in the car, not necessarily due to fault of his own. It suffered a lot of damage. They repaired the car, brought the car back out. Atse Kirchhoff had further problems with it. And disappointingly, Team Redline, within the last hour, announced that that car has been officially retired. We saw shots of it in the garage. So we are down to 49 of our 50 starters still running in the race. So car number 20 for Team Redline. And that was Team Redline's real, front line entry, and definitely one of the pre-race potential winners their race, despite all of their hard work and effort, was not favoured by any kind of luck other than bad, and that car is out of action. Other cars have had their problems. In fact, one car that we thought within the first couple of hours was out of the race, car number 14, the Fernando Alonso Rubens Barrichello all-in sports entered car, that ran out of fuel as a result of a glitch in the game, not allowing Fernando to fuel during a pit stop, and was then, we believed, retired. But there was a red flag because of a server crash, and when you recover from a server crash, it resets the entire game, and that was an opportunity for the organisers to put the car back in the race. It didn't go back on the lead lap, it went back at the tail of the LMP2 class, but it did at least mean that the drivers got a chance to race. So that car is still running. Fernando Alonso was 30 kilometers into a bike ride by all accounts when the news came through to him. So like everybody else, I guess, he had his phone with Strava on to just document that quick spin halfway through a, I don't know, 75 kilometer or 100 kilometer ride, whatever it was, and he came back to get on with the race. But at the front of our field, as you can see on the timing pylon, car number 1 is our race leader, Louis Delatraz, Rebellion Williams, up to second place, Jesper Pedersen for Bike-Oles. Third place now, Agustin Canapino in the 13 Rebellion Williams esports car. And down to fourth place, 2Cs Motorsport. That is Isa bin Abdullah Al Khalifa, but again, he has been doing a really solid job in that car, losing very little time to the cars around him. And he took that car over in second place from Ollie Rowland, but now in fourth position and still within a minute of the race leader. Arthur Rouget fifth for Rebellion Williams, so they got 3 cars now in the top 5, not the top 7. Pierre Gasly up to 6th in car number 24 for Veleche Esports. Dominic Farber in 7th position rather, can't count, for Jota Team Redline. That's their lead car now, Team Redline, the 37 Jota Sport car. Thibaut Cazoubon for Panis Racing AAA, 31, that's Olivier Panis's lead car, that's in 8th. In 9th place, the TDS E-Racing Motul car, that's been up and down the leaderboard like the Assyrian Empire, car number 46. And in 10th place, Team Rocket, Zancho and Jensen Button back at the wheel of his car and his team's entry, rounding out the top 10. So Toyota Gazoo Racing, having had one stage early on in daylight, at least one, if not maybe briefly both cars in the top 10. Their lead entry is now the number 10 car, Team Argentina, Toyota Gazoo Racing, that's in 12th place, and Jose Maria Lopez bringing the number 7 car back up the order in 13th position, just ahead of Richard Bradley for IDEX Sport, who has taken over the car. So Richard was driving in our studio. Still driving?
Yeah, that's still him.
That is still him. So he is back in the sim here, having taken, he must have taken it back over at the last pit stop. It wasn't Richard in beforehand, was it?
Given the rig is right in front of us, there
I know,
still,
but all I can see is a screen and a white T-shirt below it, and so I know Richard was wearing a white T-shirt earlier. I know from the timing he is in the car now, so he is in the studio with us, as is our other race driver, or our other rig in the studio is occupied, and that is the Cinetic Alpine Elf car. No, it's no longer occupied because at the last driver change, Andre Negrão took over, and he is in Sao Paulo. It may still be occupied, but Andre Negrão is driving. He is in that car, in the 36 car. So he has just recently taken over then the Cinetic car from Pierre Rag, who is the man who's been driving the car in the studio. Thomas Laurent is elsewhere in Paris on his own rig, but Pierre Rag is still in the rig, isn't he? Rag is in the rig.
Yeah.
So he's obviously, again, chatting with the engineer after that stint finished, doing a bit of a debrief presumably before he trots off back to the same place I'm going to in a few minutes, because they're staying in the same hotel as we are, just around the corner, behind the Élysée Palace on Rue Faubourg Saint-Honoré, which, as fashionistas will know, is ground zero for posh pause fashion in Paris, isn't it?
So you've been out shopping?
I have definitely not been out shopping. It's just an address I recognise. It's like Bond Street. You don't have to go there to know that you can't afford anything.
I was particularly worried to see that there was a bag in our room from my wife, who is also staying with us on this particular street.
Your wife, who is also staying with you, we should just clarify that very quickly.
Actually, I say us. It's because I've also got my dog there. Very weird to have a dog in my hotel room. That's why it's us. Thankfully, her bag was from Decathlon, but I'm sure Decathlon's more expensive. Actually, the tennis balls are more expensive on this particular street than they would be anywhere else. But
well, I don't think there is a Decathlon in Rue Faubourg Saint-Honoré.
Apparently there is.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. But it does mean that our beers were very expensive the other night.
Oh, wow, yes.
Now I've done the maths, trying to get myself to sleep. Martin, what a sterling job. Thank you so much. I don't know why I gave myself the graveyard shift, but anyway, well done me. You can get yourself off to sleep and see you in the morning. That's a decent night's sleep, that time that you've got. I'm going to do 2 hours here and 2 hours there, and Chris definitely got the worst end of the stick. I don't know how that ended up. I'm sorry for that, Chris, but
what did I do?
Somebody's got to do it, right?
Yeah, it's all good.
Somebody's got to do it. So I'm kind of slightly catching up, but Martin's done a great job there of updating kind of the main stories, and what a shame to see the Team Redline car that when I went to bed was pretty much in the lead. In fact, I think it did take the lead with Max Verstappen when I fell asleep. Other big story that I've managed to catch up on, and big shout out to Jimmy Broadbent, who is now at 500,000 K followers, subscribers I should say, on his YouTube channel. I said it was going to happen on Monday when he was on my chat show, and he did not believe me. He had to get 4,000 or 3,000 something followers in this particular race. They gave him a little push earlier on, but an amazing achievement for a guy who sits in his shed driving cars, making silly videos, to have 500,000 followers on YouTube, and he certainly deserves that Nissan GTR that he recently bought himself.
Yeah, I mean, I actually met Jimmy for the first time when we went to commentate on the Gran Turismo World Tour in Nürburgring, and he had never commentated before then. It was his first time doing it. He did a sterling job, and now he commentates for Gran Turismo on a regular basis. But yeah, it was great. At that time, I think he had something like 120 or 30,000 subscribers, and when throughout 2018 and 19, it just shot right up, and now he finds himself at 500,000 subscribers, to the point where I was commentating with him in Tokyo, he actually had people coming up to him in the street asking for pictures.
Well, we commented on this earlier. Ben was saying you gave him a big push under every bus that came past. That's a big push.
That one didn't start that one. That was definitely Chris.
I think he got those extra 4,000 viewers purely out of sympathy, pulling him out from every one of those 4,000 buses you shoved him under.
I did text him just before I said that, and said you might want to listen.
Yeah, what a birthday roughing up he got. I tell you, there was flags down on the play every 10 seconds.
I think the thing he was most annoyed about was approaching 30.
Yeah, fair enough.
From the wrong way.
But what a weekend to be racing in this sim race in Le Mans, and to be able to hit 500k and to celebrate your birthday. It's just quite amazing. There's nothing much more that he can do to embarrass himself, though, after raising so much money in his charity challenge a couple of weeks back and having to dye his hair because of it. I don't think he's got any kind of bet on here to do anything if he had get to 500k, but perhaps we should have set one for him.
Yeah, we should.
A missed opportunity.
But there's a great interview, actually. Drive Tribe did a really good interview with him recently, and he talks about in that, you know, how it all started for him, and how it was kind of a difficult time when he started out in YouTube. And he's one of those guys that he feels very fortunate to be in the position he's in. And some people would think a YouTuber with 1,000 subscribers would be a very big-headed person. Jimmy is not that. He still doesn't understand why people want to give him things or work with him, and he still doesn't understand why he's able to drive around that nice Nissan that he has. Believe me, he is one of the most grounded people I have ever met, considering the success he's built for himself.
And that's exactly why he's got the subscribers he has. He's also got quite a small head, I imagine, in terms of kind of his helmet size must be quite small.
No.
Has he got a big head?
Yeah.
Has he?
Yeah.
Wow.
He'll be the first person to tell you that.
Because he's not entirely a tall man, so I thought he might have a small head. He's got a weird-shaped head.
Oh, no. Those buses are coming back down.
3 o'clock approaching in Paris, and these kind of stories is how it's going to roll for the next couple of hours. Please get involved. Hashtag Le Mans 24 virtual on Twitter. I'm sure you've got myself and Chris McCarthy already on Twitter with our handles if you want to come with us direct. I am at Ben Consti, and Chris is
at Chris McCarthy 32. I'm logging in now.
And please do use hashtag Le Mans 24 virtual for all of your stories, all of your questions about this particular race, about any particular race. We'll try our best. Obviously, I've not got the scope or the age that Mr. Martin Haven has when it comes to many Le Mans and many experiences and many stories. I've had 10 years of it, but not quite as many as Mr. Martin Haven, who once did the full 24-hour Le Mans without sleeping, and wow, did he sound a little bit jaded by the end. That was quite an achievement to do the whole thing. I don't think I'm ever going to try and achieve or attempt at that one. So what is going on? I'm not going to get sucked into any negativity, Twitter, okay? That is one thing that I went to bed fuming about. You're not going to drag me down the rabbit hole, so no questions about like negativity. I'm so glad that a lot of you enjoyed the DJ. There was certainly some mixed feelings, but we have had some really good positivity across the last couple of hours seeing the DJ come on. I know that I was watching Jimmy stream and he had no idea what to do. Of course, they couldn't stream the sound because they've had issues on Twitch and on YouTube with copyright issues if they were streaming the sound.
Right.
Somehow we, from our stream, got away with it, but others were struggling, so they had to mute the DJ to make sure they didn't have a strike and then have the whole thing taken down. So a little bit of a messy time for anybody who was streaming, but I think everyone pretty much got away with it. I have had that issue on YouTube where you're streaming some music and all of a sudden they just take away your sound. Thanks very much. And then you have to like stop your stream and start it again to get it back.
Yeah, there we go. It's something that happens. Unfortunately, it's something that YouTubers, I'm sure, would say that they've had problems with as well. But I'm glad people did enjoy the concert. I know there were some mixed feelings out there, but when I was in Le Mans last year, I went and saw the concert for a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I think if you're at Le Mans and enjoying the party atmosphere, there's no harm in dropping out for half an hour to watch a concert and coming back in. You don't miss. Sometimes you will miss a very significant thing. You tend not to, though. It doesn't tend to be a time of day, night where drama happens, although, to be honest, it can happen at any moment at Le Mans. For some reason, that kind of time is you know, there's a rhythm going on, nothing's really happening, the dead of night is coming, but unless you have rain showers and stuff, it tends to be a calm period.
Just getting messages in already on Twitter and keep them coming in. David Wilkinson saying about the bicolors, which is on an alternate strategy in the Le Mans 24 virtual and is edging closer to the lead Rebellion with every round a stop. So a good spot there by David Wilkinson, who's been keeping an eye on the bicolors car very closely, and we can see that that gap, Ben, is coming down. It's below 30 seconds now. That's a car that's had a lot of problems. A team which has had to keep their head up during this race. And by Collis, just to be where they are at the moment is very impressive. They have kept that gap within 30 seconds. And look to the top left of the screen. That's how long we have left in the race. Yes, you are reading it correctly. 12 hours and 10 minutes. So there is still a long way to go in this race. We are going to 3 p.m. Local time here in Paris tomorrow, as we would usually be at the Le Mans 24 hour. So keep the messages coming in. We are here. I'm here with Ben for the next couple of hours, and I know he's here for a few more hours than that. So when Ben walks outside, this is always the weirdest thing about these events, and I always say this to people, when you come out of the studio, you're like, oh, it's light again now.
Yeah, by the time I get out, there'll be life outside. The boulangeries will be baking, and
you'll be able to go into a cafe.
Yeah, straight in. It was actually light when I went outside last night, like 11 o'clock at night, and suddenly, oh gosh, it actually is still light. That's amazing. But we weren't too far away from all the ghastly protests and chaos that was happening, but actually ended up being quite quiet around us. So touch wood, that's going to stay the way it should be on Sunday. They're quite respectful in France for when they do protest. They tend to leave Sundays as a day where they go to church or something, I don't know, but they have been pretty good in the past of, we'll protest on Saturday, but we're going to have a nice leisurely lunch on Sunday.
I'm not sure the same can be said in other places, can it? Peaceful protest doesn't happen everywhere, believe me, as we would have seen. But something away from all of that is some fantastic racing during the night here at Le Mans, the Le Mans 24-hour virtual. Always a fantastic sight just to watch the cars going round in the evening, and great to have the pictures coming to you for the full 24 hours of this race as we ride on board now with one of our GT cars. This is one of the Corvette cars, the factory Corvette cars, going up towards turn number 1 here, and so far it's been a fairly decent day at the office for Corvette. Let's look there, 7th with the number 64 car and 12th with the number 63 car. Terzic is in the 64 car and is actually closing in on Kevin Van Duren. So I believe that is Kevin Van Duren ahead in the Dempsey Proton car, and it is. So we are on board